There's a couple that I sat down with last year who were both in their early 60s. They had enough saved to retire comfortably, and they told me they hadn't slept well in 8 months. Not because they didn't have saved money, but because they were terrified that the stock market would crash basically the day after they stopped working, and they'd spend their elderly years just watching it drain away. But by the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly how we fix that. But first, we need to talk about what is probably the most disrespected and least understood product in all of finance. And if you type in the word annuities right now into Google, what you're going to find are two camps. One that says they're the worst investment you could ever make, and the other side that says they're God's gift to mankind. But both sides are incorrect. My name is Cody Crawford, fiduciary advisor. I'm here to put your interests first. I don't have a quota. I don't get paid to push one specific product. What I want to do is empower you to make good financial decisions. So today there's not going to be a sales pitch. We're going to look at why people hate these things. By the way, they're kind of urban legend, which the salesman gets wrong, and the three situations where an annuity can actually belong in a smart retirement plan. I'll show you the real numbers on that couple that I mentioned. So let's get into it. First, can I address the elephant in the room? Why is the reputation of this industry so tarnished? And I think it's two words: bad salesmanship. For decades, agents have sold annuities like they were high return investments that could beat the S&P 500. They take someone who needed stability, put them in a complicated, high fee variable annuity with a 10-year, sometimes 15-year surrender charge, and promise them the moon. Of course, then the market would drop. There'd be 2 to 5% in fees. The clients would try to pull their money out, and then they'd get hit with this massive penalty. Of course, they hate annuities. If you buy something marketed as a growth investment and it turns out to be an insurance contract built for risk management, you will feel cheated, and you'd be right. So here's the truth a commissioned salesperson is never going to tell you. An annuity is not an investment. It is an insurance product. What you're buying is a contract with an insurance company, in our opinion, to solve one very specific problem, which is the fear of running out of money before you run out of breath. Once you stop judging annuities as investments and you start looking at them as insurance, everything is going to change. You don't get mad that your car insurance didn't beat the market, because that's not the tool it was designed to be used for. And it's the same idea here. Here's what most people do not realize. The annuity world today, it looks nothing like it did in the 90s, but everyone is still judging it by their brother-in-law's bad experience from 25 years ago, or worse, their great-grandfathers, right? So let me give you the three tools you actually need to know surrounding annuities in plain English. Number one is the MYGA, which is a multi-year guaranteed annuity. Think of it like the insurance company's version of a CD, except it pays significantly more, and if it's after-tax money, you get tax deferral on the growth. And what it does is you lock in a fixed rate for a set term. It could be 3, 5, or 7 years. The principal's protected. The rate is guaranteed. There's no market drops. And for instance, here's the moment we're living through right now. It's August of 2026. And as of today, the top 5-year MYGA rates from A-rated carriers are running around 5.5%, some even hitting 6%, which is some of the strongest rates that we've seen in probably a decade and a half, and 1.5 to 2 points higher than what you can get at a CD. Now, what's the catch? Well, most forecasts have rates drifting lower from here as the Fed cuts, so this window won't stay open. Secondly, there are penalties if you leave earlier that tend to run higher than a CD. The second, and by far the most popular, I think these were 86% of all the sales last year in 2025, called a fixed indexed annuity. Now, this is what most look at as the best of both worlds tool. Your principal on one hand is protected 100% against the market losses. So if we take the index such as the S&P 500 and it drops 25% this year, your account doesn't lose a dime. Zero is your hero. But when the market goes up, you're going to capture a portion of that gain up to a cap, say 8, 9, 10%, or a participation rate, which means if you got 50% of the S&P and the S&P earned 10, you get 5. Right now, competitive caps are landing in the 10 to 11% range, and the participation rates in the 60 to 65% range. So ultimately, you're going to give up some of the upside in exchange for eliminating the downside. For money you can't afford to lose, that's a trade a lot of retirees are thrilled to make. Third is the income rider. And here's really what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Annuities do an exceptional job at creating guaranteed income. Yes, those annuities I just mentioned that can get 8, 9, 10%, that really can happen, but there is no guarantee that it will happen. What if you want guaranteed income you cannot outlive? That's an optional add-on that you can attach to these fixed indexed annuities. It basically looks like a pension stream. So you're going to get income for life, no matter how long you live, and you can even add it on your spouse. So let me give you a quick example. Let's say you're 62 and you put 200,000 into an FIA, fixed indexed annuity, with one of these income riders, and you decide to switch income on at 67. That rider is going to grow at a guaranteed income base every year. Think about Social Security. When you defer Social Security, you get kind of like an 8% roll up. That's exactly what happens with these annuities. And so when you flip the switch at 67, they're going to start paying you a check every single month for the rest of your life, even when that underlying account balance runs to zero. Meaning it's completely off your balance sheet, but they will keep paying you forever. There's not another financial tool that can do that. That's the piece that solves the fear of outliving your money. Now hold that thought for a minute. As a fiduciary, I see the same 3 misconceptions walk through my door over and over. So let's just address those. And myth number 1 is, Cody, if I put my money into an annuity, I'm never going to see it again. It's just completely tied up. People hear the word surrender charge and they picture their money vanishing into this black hole, but it's not true. Most modern contracts will let you pull out 10% of your account value penalty-free every single year. And when that surrender period ends, say at the 10-year mark, every dollar is fully liquid. So think about it like this. If you owned a 401k or an IRA before 59 and a half, which is a lot of you, what would have happened if you went in and pulled that cash out? There'd be a 10% penalty, plus you pay taxes on it. Again, what I'm saying is with most of these annuities, you can take out 10% free of any penalty, again, as long as you're over 59 and a half. It is your money. Myth number 2 is that either annuities have no fees or annuities have super high fees. Nothing in finance is free. And if someone tells you otherwise, you need to run for the hills. Now, a basic MYGA that I talked about or a growth-oriented fixed indexed annuity shouldn't have any fees, right? Now, the insurance company is going to build its profit into that product. And a good advisor is going to show you exactly what you're paying for the risk that you're offloading. If they can't, then again, run for the hills. Now, if it's the income rider fixed indexed annuity, most of those are going to have a fee of about 1%. I will say it's probably the most irrelevant fee in all of finance because that 1% is not going to impact the income you get. It's the variable annuities generally that you hear about that have these super high fees. I've seen them range up to 5%. On average, they're 2 and 3%. So that's kind of how the fees work with variable annuities. Myth number 3 is that these annuities can beat the stock market. Now, there are times when there is significant volatility, like the year 2000 to 2010, where some of these fixed indexed annuities from a growth standpoint did outperform the stock market. But on a long range basis, that's just not going to happen. Equities are designed to grow and beat inflation. Annuities are fixed income products. Even the growth ones are going to get 4 to 6%. Okay, you still need real growth to outrun 30 years of inflation. Again, an annuity should not replace your growth engine. It should anchor it. And that distinction is everything. Now, I want to be just as honest about when you don't need one of these. If you've got a big pension covering your expenses, a modest lifestyle, and maybe a portfolio that you feel is large enough to weather any storm, maybe you don't need an annuity at all. And a real fiduciary is going to tell you that. An annuity is going to make sense in one of 3 situations. Number 1, you've got a gap in your income floor like Dave and Susan did. Number 2, you lie awake just worrying about a market crash, wrecking those first few years of retirement. And really, it's looking at using a bond alternative, right? You don't really like what rates are doing with bonds, the fact that they can lose money. So maybe you don't need the guaranteed income, but you want to take a portion of that money and grow it safely. Maybe a growth-oriented fixed indexed annuity makes a lot of sense there. Now, if none of those describe you, then you have my blessing to close this video and skip annuities entirely. But if one of them does, just keep watching. Navigating this marketplace on your own feels like walking through a minefield of sales pitches. You've probably talked to a lot of people, but you do not have to. If you want to look at your own situation and see how, or honestly whether an annuity fits, let's have a conversation. No pressure, no product pushing, just clear fiduciary first planning so you can see options laid out in plain English. You can click the link in the description below, have a 30-minute strategy session, and we will point you in the right direction. I hope this video helped, and I'll see you on the next one.